You've been looking at a stage your entire life and mistaking it for reality. Every person you've ever trusted, every colleague you've ever worked with, every partner you've ever loved, they've been performing for you. Not sometimes. Not occasionally. Constantly. And you've been applauding the performance while the actor behind it has been quietly taking everything you have. The version of someone you think you know is a character they're playing. And the person behind that character is far more dangerous, and far more predictable, than the role they ever show you. That's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to hear because it threatens everything you believe about your own judgment. You think you're perceptive. You think you can read people. You can't. You read masks. You read costumes. You read scripts that were handed to people long before you ever met them, and you've been calling that reading people. It's not. It's being fooled with style. Machiavelli understood something 500 years ago that most people still refuse to accept today: power belongs to the person who sees what others are pretending not to see. The ruler who believes his courtiers are loyal is already dead. The ruler who watches their performances and reads the hunger underneath their smiles, that ruler survives. That ruler controls. That ruler never gets blindsided. And that's what this is about. Not just seeing through people. Not just being harder to fool. It's about power. The power that comes from understanding that every human interaction is a performance, and the person who can read the stage while everyone else is lost in the plot holds an advantage so quiet, so complete, that most people don't even realize they've lost until it's far too late. Being liked is not being respected. And being fooled by a performance is not being connected to a person. It's being managed by one. Here are 7 dark principles for seeing through every mask people wear, and reclaiming the power that's been quietly slipping through your fingers every time you trusted a character instead of reading the person behind it. 1. The mask is not an accident. It's a weapon. People don't wear masks because they're broken. They wear masks because masks work. Every person you meet has learned, through years of trial and error, exactly which version of themselves gets them what they want. The nice guy at the office who's always helpful, always smiling, always the first to volunteer, that's not kindness. That's strategy. He learned early that appearing harmless and eager to please opens doors that aggression never could. The woman who's perpetually confident, perpetually put together, who never seems rattled by anything, that's not strength. That's armor. She learned that vulnerability gets punished, so she built a character that can't be touched. The friend who's always agreeable, always on your side, always telling you what you want to hear, that's not loyalty. That's survival. They figured out that conflict is dangerous and compliance is safe, so they perform compliance and call it friendship. None of this makes people evil. It makes them strategic. The problem isn't that people perform. The problem is that you watch the performance and forget it's a performance. You take the character at face value. You build relationships with costumes. You trust scripts. And then when the mask slips, when the nice guy reveals his resentment, when the confident woman collapses under pressure, when the agreeable friend betrays you for their own advantage, you act surprised. You say you never saw it coming. But it was always coming. It was always there, underneath the performance, waiting for the moment it was safe to come out. The mask is a weapon. It's designed to get a result. And the result is almost never what you think it is. Most people see the mask and trust it. Strategic people see the mask and ask one question: what is this performance designed to get? That question alone will change every relationship you have. Because once you start asking what someone's performance is designed to achieve, you stop being the audience and you start being the director. You stop reacting to the character and you start reading the actor. And the actor is always more predictable than the character, because the actor has needs. The character has a script. The actor has hunger. And hunger, unlike a script, follows patterns you can learn to see. 2. The gap between performance and reality is where truth lives. Here's something most people never figure out: the most important information about a person is never what they show you. It's the distance between what they show you and what they actually are. That gap, that space between the mask and the face, is where every secret, every motive, every hidden agenda lives. And you can feel it. You've felt it before. You've met someone who was perfectly charming, perfectly appropriate, said all the right things, and something in your gut whispered that something was off. You couldn't name it. You couldn't point to a specific lie. But the performance was just slightly too smooth. Just slightly too perfect. Just slightly too consistent to be real. That feeling is not paranoia. That feeling is your ancient, pre-verbal pattern recognition doing exactly what it evolved to do, detecting a mismatch between what someone is presenting and what someone actually is. The problem is that most people override that signal. You feel the gap, and then you talk yourself out of it. You tell yourself you're being too judgmental. You tell yourself to give them a chance. You tell yourself that maybe this person is just genuinely that nice, that confident, that agreeable. And every single time, you're choosing the performance over your own instinct. You're choosing the mask over the truth. Strategic people do the opposite. When they feel the gap, they lean into it. They don't override the signal, they amplify it. They pay closer attention. They start looking for the cracks in the performance, the moments where the mask doesn't quite align with the emotion, where the words don't match the body, where the timing is just slightly off. Because those cracks are not mistakes. They're the real person leaking through. And the real person is always leaking through. No one can maintain a perfect performance indefinitely. It's too costly. It requires too much energy. The face tires. The body betrays. The voice shifts. And in those unguarded moments, sometimes lasting only a fraction of a second, the truth appears like a flash of lightning in a dark room. If you're watching for it, you see everything. If you're not, you see nothing, and you go back to applauding the performance. The gap is where truth lives. And the people who can read the gap, who can sit in a conversation and simultaneously listen to what's being said and observe what's being concealed, those people become untouchable. Not because they're smarter. Because they're awake. 3. Watch what happens when they forget they're being watched. This is the single most important skill in reading people, and almost nobody uses it deliberately. Everyone performs when they know they have an audience. Everyone. Including you. The moment someone is aware they're being observed, they adjust. They straighten their posture. They modulate their voice. They choose their words more carefully. They become the version of themselves they want you to see. That's why most of your impressions of people are wrong. You've been watching them on stage. You've never seen them backstage. But backstage is where the real person lives. And backstage moments come more often than you think. They come when someone thinks the conversation has shifted and the spotlight has moved. They come when someone is tired, or distracted, or frustrated, or drunk. They come in the pause before a response, in the glance at a phone, in the reaction to an interruption. They come when someone is caught off guard by a question they weren't prepared for. In those moments, the performance drops. Not completely, the mask never fully comes off in public. But it shifts. It loosens. And for a brief window, you see the architecture underneath. The person who's been playing confident suddenly looks uncertain. The person who's been playing nice suddenly looks irritated. The person who's been playing indifferent suddenly looks hungry. Those micro-transitions are worth more than 100 hours of conversation, because they're the only time you're seeing the actual human being rather than the character they've constructed. Here's the technique. Stop watching people when they're performing for you. Start watching them when they think you've stopped watching. Watch the transition. Watch the moment between moments. Watch what happens in the gap between one social situation and the next, when someone hasn't yet had time to put the next mask on. That in-between space, that's where people are real. And the real person is always more predictable than the performed one, because the real person is driven by needs they can't fake. The character can say anything. The person can only want what they actually want. And once you know what someone actually wants, not what they say they want, not what they perform wanting, but what their body and their patterns and their unguarded moments reveal they want, you can predict them. You can anticipate them. You can position yourself ahead of them. And that's not manipulation. That's awareness. Awareness is not manipulation. It's protection. It's the difference between walking through a dark room with a flashlight and walking through it blind. The room is the same either way. But only one version of you makes it to the door. 4. Patterns reveal character. Moments deceive. Here's a mistake that has cost you more than any other mistake in your life: you judge people by their best moments. Someone does something kind, something generous, something that seems selfless, and you file that away as evidence of who they are. You build your entire picture of them around that single data point. And then, months later, when they do something cruel, something selfish, something that contradicts everything you believed about them, you're shocked. You feel betrayed. You say they changed. They didn't change. You just saw a different moment. People don't have one consistent self. They have patterns. And patterns are the only thing that tells you the truth about a person, because patterns can't be faked over time. Anyone can be kind once. Anyone can be generous once. Anyone can perform any quality for an afternoon, for a week, for even a few months. But over time, the performance always breaks down. Over time, the pattern emerges. And the pattern is who they actually are. This is why you need to stop judging people by isolated actions and start reading them across time. When someone does something that seems out of character, don't ask what's wrong with them today. Ask whether it's really out of character at all, or whether you just hadn't been watching long enough to see the pattern. The colleague who's usually supportive but suddenly throws you under the bus, that wasn't a moment of weakness. That was the pattern finally breaking through the performance. The partner who's usually attentive but periodically disappears emotionally, that's not a rough patch. That's the cycle. The friend who's usually generous but always seems to benefit from your generosity more than you benefit from theirs, that's not coincidence. That's the architecture of the relationship, and it was always there. You just weren't reading across time. You were reading across moments, and moments lie. Strategic people never trust a moment. They trust a pattern. And they wait, patiently, quietly, without judgment, for the pattern to reveal itself. This requires something most people don't have: the willingness to suspend judgment. To not decide who someone is after the first impression. To not build a story about them after the first conversation. To watch, and wait, and let the pattern accumulate, and then, only then, to draw conclusions. Most people can't do this. They need to know immediately. They need to categorize. They need to file people into boxes: good person, bad person, trustworthy person, dangerous person. And that need for immediate certainty is exactly what makes them easy to fool. Because the performer knows you're going to judge them quickly. The performer knows that if they can nail the first impression, you'll spend the rest of the relationship filtering everything they do through that initial positive judgment. They give you one good moment, and you spend years interpreting every subsequent moment in its light. That's not your generosity. That's their strategy. Patterns over moments. Always. 5. Appear less aware than you are. This is the oldest trick in the book, and it works because it exploits the one weakness every performer has: they need an audience that believes the performance. The moment the audience sees through it, the performance loses its power. But here's the thing: if you let someone know you see through them, they don't drop the mask. They put on a better one. They adapt. They escalate. They perform harder, because now they know they're dealing with someone who's watching, and they need a performance that can survive scrutiny. So the worst thing you can do when you see through someone's mask is let them know you see through it. The best thing you can do is the opposite. Play the sucker. Let them think their performance is working. Let them believe you're taken in by the character they're showing you. Not because you're naive, because you're strategic. Because a performer who thinks they've fooled you drops their guard. They stop trying so hard. They reveal more than they would if they knew you were watching closely. They get comfortable. And comfortable people are honest people, because honesty is what happens when the effort of performing drops away. This is something Machiavelli understood at a level most people still can't comprehend. The most powerful position in any room is not the person everyone's watching. It's the person everyone's underestimating. The person who seems a little slower, a little less aware, a little less sharp than they actually are. That person is given access that sharp people never get. That person is told things that perceptive people never hear. That person is underestimated, and underestimation is the most valuable form of leverage in human interaction, because people only reveal themselves to those they don't consider a threat. So stop trying to be the smartest person in the room. Stop trying to show people you see through them. That's ego, not strategy. Strategy is letting them think they've fooled you while you quietly catalog every tell, every inconsistency, every gap between their performance and their reality. You're not hiding your intelligence. You're weaponizing it. There's a difference. Hiding your intelligence is about fear, fear of being seen, fear of being targeted. Weaponizing your intelligence is about patience, the understanding that the most dangerous position is not the one where everyone knows you're dangerous. It's the one where no one does. Be the person they think they can fool. Be the audience that claps at the right moments. And while you're clapping, watch everything. Remember everything. And when the time comes to act on what you know, and it will come, you won't need to announce it. You'll just move. And they'll never understand what happened, because they were too busy performing to notice you were directing. 6. Emotional leakage is unavoidable. Learn to read it. Here's something that should terrify every performer on earth and empower every person who knows it: the body cannot lie. Not for long. Not convincingly. The mouth can say anything. The face can arrange itself into any expression. The words can be chosen with surgical precision. But the body, the micro-movements, the shifts in posture, the tension in the jaw, the direction of the feet, the speed of the blink, the body is always telling the truth. And the body is always talking. Always. The question is whether you're listening. Most people aren't. Most people are so focused on the words, on what's being said, on the content of the conversation, that they completely miss the physical channel. And the physical channel is where the real information lives. Someone tells you they're fine. Their jaw is tight. Their shoulders are raised. Their breathing is shallow. Their feet are pointed toward the door. They're not fine. They're performing fine. And their body is screaming the truth while their mouth whispers the lie. Someone tells you they support you. Their smile doesn't reach their eyes. Their hands are clenched. Their voice went slightly flat on the word support. They don't support you. They're performing support, because supporting you is what they're supposed to do, and they're not ready to show you what they actually feel. Someone tells you they're not angry. Their nostrils are slightly flared. Their blink rate has increased. Their speech is just slightly more controlled than it should be, too controlled, the way someone sounds when they're holding something back with effort. They're angry. They're performing calm. And the anger is leaking out of every pore they're trying to seal. You don't need to be a mind reader. You need to be a body reader. And body reading is not mystical. It's observational. It's the practice of watching what people do with their physical form while their verbal form is busy constructing a performance. The face is the most controlled part of the body, because it's the part everyone watches. So don't just watch the face. Watch the hands. Watch the feet. Watch the posture. Watch the breathing. Watch the micro-expressions, those involuntary facial movements that flash across someone's face in a fraction of a second before they're suppressed. Those micro-expressions are the real person breaking through the mask, and they happen so fast that if you're not trained to watch for them, you'll miss them entirely. But once you start watching, once you make it a habit to split your attention between what someone is saying and what their body is doing while they say it, you start seeing things that were always there but that you were never looking for. And once you see them, you can never unsee them. You become someone who cannot be lied to convincingly. Not because people stop lying to you, they won't. But because you'll always know. The body told you. The body always tells you. And knowing is power. Not the power to confront. Not the power to accuse. The power to understand. The power to move through the world with accurate information while everyone else is operating on performances and lies. 7. Reading the mask makes you immune. Being fooled by it makes you a puppet. This is the principle that ties everything together, and it's the one that should land hardest. Every moment you spend believing someone's performance is a moment you're being managed. Every decision you make based on a mask someone is wearing is a decision they're making for you. Every relationship you build with a character instead of a person is a relationship where the other side has all the information and you have none. That's not a relationship. That's a puppet show. And you're the puppet. The people who've hurt you the most, think about them, the ones who blindsided you, the ones who betrayed you, the ones who turned out to be completely different from who you thought they were. They didn't change. They didn't switch. They just stopped performing. The mask came off, and you saw what was always there. And the reason it destroyed you wasn't just that they were different from what you expected. It was that you had built your entire emotional position around a fiction. You trusted the character. You invested in the role. You gave your loyalty, your time, your vulnerability, your resources, not to a person, but to a performance. And when the performance ended, you didn't just lose a relationship. You lost the version of reality you'd been living in. That's what masks do. They don't just conceal. They construct. They build a world that doesn't exist, and they put you in it, and you live there, and you think it's real, until the day it collapses and you realize you were living in someone else's fiction the whole time. But here's the flip side, and this is where the power comes in. When you can read the mask, all of that changes. You stop being a character in someone else's play. You stop being the audience for a performance designed to manage you. You become the one person in the room who sees what's actually happening. And that position, that quiet, alert, unhurried awareness, is the most powerful position in any human interaction. Not because you use it to control people, but because it makes you uncontrollable. If someone can't fool you, they can't manipulate you. If someone can't manipulate you, they can't use you. If someone can't use you, you're free. Not the loud, performative freedom of someone who announces their independence. The quiet, terrifying freedom of someone who simply cannot be played. That's what this is about. Not becoming a manipulator. Not becoming cold. Not becoming someone who treats every interaction as a chess game. It's about becoming someone who sees. And seeing, real seeing, the kind that looks past the mask and reads the person underneath, is the most undervalued power in human life. Because most people are so caught up in their own performances that they never develop the capacity to read anyone else's. They're too busy managing their own mask to notice the masks everyone else is wearing. And that's the trap. The performer is always also the audience. You're wearing a mask and believing everyone else's masks at the same time. Double blind. Double fooled. And the only way out is to start seeing, really seeing, both sides. The masks others wear. And the one you wear yourself. Because here's the thing about your own mask. The same principle that lets you read other people applies to you. You're performing too. You have a character you present to the world. You have a version of yourself that you've constructed, refined, and deployed so many times that you've forgotten it's a construction. And the gap between who you're performing and who you actually are is the same gap that, in others, reveals everything. In yourself, it reveals everything too. It reveals why you're exhausted. It reveals why your relationships feel hollow. It reveals why you're surrounded by people who seem to like you but don't actually know you. Because they don't know you. They know your character. And you've been so committed to maintaining the performance that you've made it impossible for anyone to reach the person underneath. That's the cost of the mask. Not just the cost of being fooled by others. The cost of fooling yourself. The cost of spending so much energy maintaining a character that you lose contact with the person the character was supposed to protect. And that's the deeper work here. Not just reading masks. Understanding why masks exist in the first place. They exist because people are afraid. Afraid of being seen. Afraid of being judged. Afraid that if the world saw who they actually are, with all their needs, all their hunger, all their pettiness, all their weakness, all their ambition, they would be rejected. So they build a version of themselves that's acceptable. And they perform it. And they hope no one notices. And most people don't notice, because they're too busy performing their own acceptable version. And so the whole world becomes a room full of actors, each one convinced they're the only one pretending, each one believing everyone else is real, each one performing harder because everyone else seems so put together, and no one, is actually being a person. You can step out of this. Not by dropping your mask dramatically, not by announcing your authenticity to the world, not by performing honesty the way some people perform confidence. But by quietly, internally, becoming aware. Aware of your own performance. Aware of the gap between your mask and your face. Aware of the cost of maintaining the character you've built. And aware, deeply, permanently aware, of the fact that everyone around you is doing the same thing. That awareness changes everything. It changes how you listen. You stop listening to words and start listening to bodies, to patterns, to gaps, to the spaces between what people say and what they mean. It changes how you watch. You stop watching performances and start watching for the moments the performance drops, in others and in yourself. It changes how you decide. You stop making decisions based on characters and start making decisions based on patterns, on actions over time, on what people do when they think no one's watching. And it changes how you carry yourself. You stop performing so hard. Not because you've given up. Because you've realized that the performance was never protecting you. It was isolating you. The mask wasn't keeping you safe. It was keeping you unseen. And being unseen is not the same as being safe. Being unseen is being alone in a room full of people who are also alone. That's what the mask costs you. Connection. Real connection. The kind that only exists between people who have seen each other clearly and chosen to stay. Not connection between characters. Connection between people. And you can't have it until you can see it. And you can't see it until you can read the mask. And you can't read the mask until you accept that it's there. In everyone. In you. All the time. So let's bring this back to where we started. You've been looking at a stage your whole life and mistaking it for reality. Every person you've ever known has been performing for you, and you've been performing for them, and the whole thing has been a beautiful, exhausting, elaborate fiction that everyone agreed to believe because the alternative, the raw, unperformed truth of who everyone actually is, felt too dangerous to face. But here's what Machiavelli knew that most people still don't. The truth is not dangerous. Not knowing the truth is dangerous. The mask is not your friend. The mask is the thing standing between you and the information you need to protect yourself, to position yourself, to make decisions that are based on reality rather than performance. Seeing through the mask is not cynicism. It's clarity. And clarity is the foundation of every form of power that matters. The person who sees through masks moves through the world like someone walking through a dark room with night vision. Everyone else is stumbling, bumping into furniture they didn't know was there, getting hurt by obstacles they couldn't see. You're walking calmly, quietly, seeing everything, touching nothing you don't intend to touch, reaching the door while everyone else is still bruised and confused in the middle of the room. That's what this gives you. Not the ability to destroy people. Not the ability to manipulate them. The ability to move through human interaction without being blindsided. Without being managed. Without being the puppet in someone else's performance. The ruthless art Machiavelli perfected, the art of seeing what others pretend not to see, of reading the person behind the performance, of holding your awareness like a blade you never have to draw, that art is now yours. Not as theory. As practice. Starting now. Not tomorrow. Not after you've finished processing. Not once you feel ready. Right now. Today, in your very next conversation, start watching. Not the words. The body. Not the performance. The gap. Not the moment. The pattern. Start asking, every time someone opens their mouth, what is this performance designed to get? And then wait. And watch. And let the answer reveal itself in the cracks, in the leaks, in the moments between moments where the real person can't help but show through. And as you do this, something will shift inside you. The anxiety of not knowing who to trust will start to fade. The confusion of being surprised by people will start to dissolve. The exhaustion of performing your own mask so relentlessly will start to ease, because once you see that everyone is performing, the pressure to perform perfectly yourself starts to feel less like survival and more like habit. And habits can be loosened. Not broken. Loosened. Just enough to let some air in. Just enough to let the real person underneath, the one who's been trapped behind the character for years, start to breathe. That's the ultimate power of reading masks. Not just that you can see others, but that seeing others clearly eventually gives you the courage to see yourself. And seeing yourself, without the mask, without the performance, without the character you've been maintaining at such enormous cost, that's where real power begins. Not the power to control others. The power to stop being controlled. By expectations. By performances. By the need to be seen as something you're not. The person who no longer needs the mask is the most dangerous person in any room. Not because they're cruel. Because they're free. And a free person cannot be managed. A free person cannot be fooled. A free person cannot be held hostage by a character they've outgrown. That person is you. Not yet. But the path starts here, and it starts with one decision. The decision to look at the next person you talk to and, for the first time, not believe them. Not because they're lying. Because they're performing. And the truth is underneath. And you're going to find it. Right now. Not tomorrow. Right now. If you understood what I just told you, if you felt the shift, if you're already starting to see the masks people wear, the ones you always saw but never let yourself acknowledge, then say it. Claim it. Put it in the comments. 3 words. I am untouchable. Not because you're invincible. Because you're awake. And the awake person moves through the world of sleepwalkers like a ghost. Seen by no one. Understanding everyone. In control of nothing but themselves. And that is everything.